that's why I'm working this zigzag pattern. And that's why the importance of these points is to give me a connecting point from the top to the baseline. Okay, so now let's move into the fringe. So she's been cutting her fringe, and I'm gonna work with what she's got going on, but I am gonna strengthen it up. And I really wanna work on opening up her face shape. Her face shape is on the longer side, so I wanna just take away this length that's kind of bringing it down more and opening that up for her. So that's gonna be my focal point. Now when I'm doing haircuts, I always think of what my focal point is. In this particular shape, my focal point is the front. My focal point is the fringe and all the little details that are gonna be around her face. The baseline is the last thing that I'm really worried about. So it's gonna be the fringe being the main thing, the movement that I wanna create internally. And then the baseline will just be determined towards the end of how I'm kind of feeling things are falling. I have her prepped with a little bit of high dive. I need something to give me slip because I'm gonna be doing a lot of carving with my scissors. So I need a product that's gonna give me a lot of slip just to allow the blade to glide through the haircut. I am gonna be doing everything with scissors. I could be doing a razor, but this is for those hairdressers that are not ready to pick up a razor yet, but want to create those kind of like really shattered ends, a lot of softness. So I'm gonna be showing you how you can use your blade to create that as you would with a razor.
You got lots of love. I think probably a friend, Jared Aldama.
Oh, Jared!
Yeah, from San Francisco.
Yes, he's like my husband, sort of.
Oh, there you go. Don't tell your
He's
husband.
my gay husband.
There you go.
He's my gay husband. He's
Yeah.
a good friend of mine. We started together and we both taught together in San Francisco. So him and I go way back. And he's an amazing salon owner and educator as well.
Very cool. Got Belgium watching, Minnesota, Melissa from Minnesota. It's great. I love to see people participating from all over the world.
All right, guys, so this is my sectioning pattern. So this is gonna be the back. These points right here are the connecting points to the baseline. So because I'm gonna be working a shorter layer technique, I need these points to dip low so they can blend into that baseline. And I also want a little bit of weight behind the ears. That's why these guys are dipping down, because I need the layering to connect and add weight to behind the ear, because I'm gonna be opening it a lot around her hairline. All right. So let's start with the fringe. So you could see here, she's kind of chewed it up a little bit on this corner. I'm gonna use that as a guideline to open it up, and I'm gonna open it up a little bit higher in through the center. She has beautiful brows, so I wanna open that up. I wanna open up her face a little bit. So I'm just gonna do some point cutting. Very soft, really simple. And nothing too strong. Ooh, let's get a little towel. Can you hold that? Okay, so now from here, this is where we're going to start to open things up. I'm going to open up my blade pretty wide. You good? And I'm just going to open and close to start opening her face up. Now on this little corner on the back, I'm going to take this length that's towards the back, I'm going to carve through that, so that way it always just kind of chisels right in through her cheekbone. It's just going to add a lot of definition to her, because I want those little points.
So when you do this technique, Raquel, you're really working with the individual's kind of facial features, their anatomy, and really kind of suiting this for them, correct?
Yes. I think that's the biggest thing is to really look at what the texture is. Before I even think about what I'm gonna do, I want to really analyze the fabric of the hair. Then after I look at the fabric, I start to look at their face and look at features that I want to showcase, bring out, and also the head shape. The head shape is also really important. Her length is quite long. If I was doing a shorter haircut, I really pay attention to the head shape a lot. But because I'm gonna be working with a shape that's longer, I'm looking more at the fabric of her hair and the face shape. So that's one side. Now we'll do the other side. Let's go here.
So maybe you can explain to me a little bit what you're exactly saying when you talk about the fabric of the hair.
The fabric of the hair is like the texture. That's how I think of it. Is it silky? I think of it in threes usually. Everything's in threes for me. So I think silk, cotton, and wool. I work with a lot of curly hair at the salon, and I take a look at also what type of fabric that curly hair is. So for her hair to me is silky, and it is straight. So what I want to create with her is almost like the illusion that it's a little bit more like cottony. So when I put in the texture and when I go into the next product, once I'm ready, I want to create something that's a little bit thatchy, a little bit textury, so that way it's not so soft and silky. So that's the nice thing about product is that you can manipulate the texture.
Well, I'd love to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you, talk about this idea of threes. I've got this whole kind of thought process behind hair, and that there's a conspiracy of threes that comes around where we think about shapes, there's three of them, three techniques. You talked about hair textures,
Yeah.
there's three structures and so forth.
Yeah.
And it goes into color as well, right? Primary
Oh,
colors,
yeah.
secondary colors, and so forth. So yeah.
I feel like 2 seems like not enough and 4 is too much.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I think 3 just gives you enough options and understanding. All right, let's take a look. I'm gonna open it up more over here. And these little points right in through here where the temple is, I'm just gonna go ahead and take those shorter. I do cut a lot dry, but I also enjoy cutting wet to dry, and that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm not gonna be wetting her down. I'm just gonna work with what she has. And again, I am working with the texture of her hair. Even though it's very silky, I'm paying attention to any little bend that's in her hair. Any little cowlick is what I'm gonna be working with. I really wanna enhance what she has. So now I'm just carving just to kind of break it up. It's a lot more see-through here than it is over here, so I'm just breaking that up for her. One of the things with fringes that I love to do a fringe, but the one thing that I always think about with the fringe is all of the natural movement that's happening at the hairline. There's nothing worse than, you have this idea of a fringe in your mind. You go into it when it's wet, you ignore all the natural movement, and then when you cut it, you have all of these surprises, or it jumps too short. So it's really paying attention to what the hair is doing naturally and going off of that. Working with the texture versus fighting it. So I already love that, and you could already see that she would look really good with short hair. Janice, whenever you want short hair.
We've got a question coming in from Joshua Coe asking to explain the definition of shag hair.
Okay, to me, when I think of a shag, I think of very soft edges and a lot of layering. I think of very little corners. There's not a lot of corners going on in a shag for me. It's a lot more open around the face. That's what I think of a shag. When anybody requests a shag, I just think lots of layers, and I want to make sure that they understand that that's what that is. A lot of softness.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Joshua.
And I think that's where we're at right now too when it comes to hair cutting, is I'm seeing a lot more layered shapes. I felt like for a while, haircuts were very, it was definitely fuller at the bottoms. The layers were hardly any. But right now, girls are a lot more comfortable with having layered haircuts. They're a lot more comfortable. They want that right now.
Yeah, I agree. In those layering shapes that you see, are you saying that the broken or the bottom edge of the haircut, call it your baseline or perimeter line,
Yes.
is a lot more just like
Snaky. It's a little bit more snaky.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I felt when I started my career, that was in, and that was like almost 15 years ago. And that was in. It was very voluminous. It was very shaggy, very voluminous on the top, and it was very shattered and snaky at the bottoms, and then things became very full at the bottom, and there wasn't a lot of layering anymore. But now I'm seeing that it's coming back again.
Do you have an aesthetic that appeals to you as an individual more so, or do you enjoy them both?
I enjoy them both. I think it depends on the style of the client, but because I do like cutting hair. I do love to put in that movement. I also found that when girls were wearing their hair not so layered and fuller in through the baseline, they had to try harder to style their hair because there wasn't so much movement. It wasn't so much about the movement. You had to add it in. So that's when a lot of styling and curling started to come about. And there was, balayage was super trendy. I mean, it still is, but that was kind of like around the time when balayage became very popular. So layers, very layered haircuts, it's not necessarily the best, I guess, for balayage. I think it's better to have the longer lengths. But now that we're seeing more layered shapes, you're also seeing more block coloring. So now I'm working out the crown. I moved to the crown, you guys, and I'm working with just a horizontal a horizontal section, and I'm bringing that straight up, and I'm cutting that short to long, shorter in the center, longer into the outer edge. Just super simple. And then everything is going to be over directed to that stationary guideline. Now there's many options you can go about in this sectioning pattern. I'm choosing to go horizontally, over directing it up, but you could actually go vertically, round, and then over direct that to the center. The reason why I'm going this way is because I do want to preserve some length. So I don't want to necessarily hug it too much around the head, because that could dip in a lot and it could be a little too disconnected for this length. So I don't want it to hug that extreme on the back. And this sectioning pattern, this haircut is simple, you guys.
Can I ask you a little bit about your tool choice? I know you're using the scissor, and you said you could use it with the razor, but looking at that scissor, I mean, it's a pretty beefy scissor. Why are you using something of that size and that shaped blade opposed to maybe like a smaller type of scissor?
Because I'm doing a lot of carving, and I feel like when I'm using a smaller blade, I don't get the slip that I want. The blade doesn't slide enough for me, and I want to get deep into the hair, and I need a longer blade for a longer stroke when I do that.
So what size scissor is that?
This is a 6.5.
And it's kind of got like a fish blade, so it's good for like, sliding through the hair and so forth. Yeah.
If I'm doing shorter hair, if I'm doing a lot of refining, then I do use a smaller blade. So now what I'm going to do, I want to show you guys real quick how you can see that this point right here, when I drop my layering, it gives me a point here. So when you think of your sectioning pattern, if you use something that's curved, your layers are going to be curved. Your layers are going to do whatever your sectioning pattern is doing. It's a reflection of your sectioning pattern. So here I have a low point. So these layers are dipping a lot lower, so it's going to connect visually more to that baseline even though it's disconnected. So now I want to release some weight. So this is when, look up, Jess. This is when the longer blade helps. I've used 7s before, but 7s are a little bit too heavy for me now. I used to use them a lot, but I'm kind of into a 6 right now, or a 6.5. So I'm just carving, and that's going to give me a lot of separation on the top. So this is going to kind of take place of a point cut. I want almost that texture to be more chunky and piecey versus very soft and diffused on just that tip.
So even though you're creating this really a great amount of texture through the hair, you've got a very disciplined approach on how you are executing it. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, okay, look, when I first started cutting, or when I first started my career, cutting was the first thing I did, color was second. And when I started my training, I was taught in a very like military style, I guess. Everything had to be precise, everything had to be clean, everything had to be in its place. So it's just kind of stuck with me, where I like things to be very orderly and structured, but at the same time, I prefer, my style is very soft. I like things to be soft. I could do this whole thing dry and maybe not even put these sectioning patterns in there, but I want to put a shape, a structure, and then I want to loosen it up with all the detailing that I'm doing. I feel like the haircut is a little bit stronger and maybe lasts a little bit longer, but I mean, I could go about just cutting the whole thing and just shredding it out, but I like there to be a bit more structure in order to what I'm doing. So that's why I'm doing that approach.
Lovely, lovely.
And dry cutting is very common right now. I mean, you could dry cut the whole thing and work with a lot of the texture. I just like, I don't know, there's something nice about cutting wet hair and seeing your lines really nice and clean, and then just letting the hair dry naturally and seeing what it does.
You've got one of your old colleagues, Mr. Anthony Edge, watching and giving you love.
Anthony!
Yeah.
Anthony taught me a lot of things, you guys. He's an amazing educator.
Yes. And Jennifer is asking, yes, this video will be available later. It will be living forever on our R&Co page. So you can come back and view it as many times as you would like.
All right, you guys, so now I'm gonna work on the top. So in the back, I worked horizontally and brought everything up, over-directed everything up. And now I'm gonna work more vertically through the front, just to switch it up. So I'm gonna work a vertical section. I'm gonna get a little guide from the back. And I think what I'm gonna do is work shorter around the front and then connecting through the crown. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want it to open up more around the face. So I want these shorter pieces to fall and kind of connect the fringe into all those little soft edges around the face. I don't want any weight to push into her face. I want the weight to be pushed away. So I'm just slicing. Nothing strong, no blunt lines. And you can kind of see how her hair is already bending. When she had all that weight on the top, her hair was just falling a lot straighter and a lot heavier. So this is also just, you could just see how it's just releasing a lot of the weight that's through the hair, so it's allowing her hair to bend.
I love that. So you're introducing movement through the hair that just wasn't once there.
Yeah. And a lot of times you don't even know what they have because there's so much weight in their hair. They don't even know what their hair is capable of doing because they don't have the haircut that will enhance their texture, or they just have all this weight. I also love the idea of like a double fringe. So she has this short fringe in through the front, but I'm kind of liking that double fringe where she has this longer length in through the top that she can kind of push forward and flick out, so she can have a lot of versatility even with the fringe. I'm not over directing this one to the center. I'm just kind of bringing everything just straight up. If I bring it to the center, I'm going to be reserving more weight, and I don't necessarily want to do that.
I think you got your friends from Croatia watching.
Woo!
Ivana.
Oh my God. You guys, I've learned all the good people that have taught me some things around here.
It's always a little nerve-wracking when you see them watching, isn't it?
Hi, you guys. I want to say something about the classes I've taken here. I've taken the Zagat classes, I think maybe 2 or 3 times. It's some of the hardest classes I've taken, but and it's all precision work, and it's not the type of work that I do on a daily basis in the salon. But I appreciate it so much because sometimes you need to like teach your hands a little discipline, so that way you can go back into like looser shapes. I feel like I need that to just kind of go back into something that's really, really strong and following really, really nice clean lines. And then I those things I always take back into the salon all the time.
Sometimes it's nice to have your hand smacked with a ruler, isn't it?
It
kind
is.
of takes you back to those old school days when they could do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I attend those classes and spend half the day just sectioning the hair, realizing I can't put a clean section in.
You guys, when I first started, we would spend sometimes 2 hours putting in a horseshoe section. And we would spend like 3 months going into a round layered haircut. I mean, I feel like those days are kind of over, but those were the days that I grew up in. So again, just loosely, short to long, shorter around the face, longer in through the back. Again, because I wanted to just open up. And working with vertical sections. And just bringing that straight up. If I over direct it to the middle, it's just gonna leave me too much length, too much weight. And I don't want too much right in through here. Last section. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have not moved from this side. I brought everything on this side comes straight up. And when I was on her right, I did the same thing. And the reason for that is because I want the angle of how I'm carving to be in the same direction. So let's see, maybe this camera. I'm coming in from the front with my blade. And when I slice, I'll just show you guys this one. You could see how it's short in the front and it's carving out a long piece towards the back. So the same thing, if I stay in the same position that I'm at, the same thing will happen on this side. So that way those pieces are both pushing back in the front. If I were to come to her opposite side, let me see, this way, So now I'm standing on the opposite side of the right. What would happen is the blade is now in the back. So now it's shorter in the back and the longest point is in the front. That would work really well if I want to push the weight forward. But because I want to push the weight back, that's why I'm standing where I'm standing, so that way those short pieces are pushing back. And also too, the angle that I'm doing right now is short in the front and longer towards the back. So that's why it makes sense for me to just stay where I am. So that way all those little short points that I'm putting in are all flowing in the same direction.
So I suppose with that, the only thing you really need to be cognizant of is if you're standing on the side that you're cutting, that you're pushing that hair far enough away from you so you're not accidentally directing it back to you. Does that make sense? It's generally like rule of over direction. You want to stand opposite of what you're cutting on.
And I used to switch my body from side to side, but I started paying attention to the point cutting and what I'm doing with my blade, so it makes sense to just stay in one side.
We've got another question from Joshua Coe asking, would you recommend using scissors when setting the length and using a razor when creating the layer?
You could do that. I think you just would have to be cautious that when you're setting up the baseline, the length, with your scissors, that you don't make it so blunt looking, because everything else is so soft with the razor. So I'm gonna go now into her baseline. I am gonna do it with my scissors, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna keep it super soft, because you can see in through here how soft. It's kind of hard to tell. There we go. I mean, her hair is pretty black, so it's a little hard to see, I think, but you can see how it's very soft and light internally. You can see also the disconnection in through here, and it does look pretty heavy, so I'm going to break that up. Let's see. There's different ways of approaching it. I'm just going to go with verticals. Again, she's open to the length, so I'm not concerned about the actual length of the hair. I'm more about blending and just removing any weight and connecting the movement that's happening on the top to the bottom. So I'm gonna work with a vertical section. You could see where the guideline is. That's for my point. And I'm gonna do some slide cutting. So if I had a razor, I would do something similar. But it's pretty flat, the blade is flat, and I'm opening and closing. So that's the weight. And this is what it goes into, like when we're talking about those snaky kind of ends. It's pretty snaky on the bottom. But now you can see it's bending versus this is very heavy. So you can see a big difference there. And then towards the end, I could just knock that off. So again, vertical. I'm not worried about a guideline. My guideline is the layer, not what I did on the previous section. I'm just gonna shake it and slice.
So in the salon, Raquel, how often would you say that you're starting your layering technique from the inside of the haircut and working out to the perimeter line, opposed to establishing that perimeter line and then removing the weight internally?
I usually start my layers before the baseline when the baseline is not as important. Yeah, if she's concerned about length, I'll establish the length first, just so we both are cool, we know what length we're doing. She's like, okay, cool. Some girls, they're so scared about losing length more than they are about their layers. So it's whatever they're the most nervous about, that's where I'm gonna start.
Smart.
I mean, for her, I knew I wanted to keep it long. If I wanted to go really short, if I was planning on taking it a lot shorter, I probably would have established a loose baseline just to kind of visually guide me with my layers to wherever I'm going. But to me, it's more about what's happening here, a little bit of movement there, and then the baseline is last. So pick your focal point. Pick the focal point in your haircut and start there. Sometimes I feel like you need your layers to give you like a vibe of what you're gonna do in the front. Or sometimes you need, if you're adding a brand new fringe or you're switching it up with the fringe, sometimes the fringe, if you start there, it's kind of gonna let you know what to do with the layers. So, I just kind of feel it out. And I think that's what makes cutting advanced for me, is that you're going off of a feeling and the hair, not so much a haircut.
I think obviously the fringe is such a personal thing on individuals who wear it. And when you have a client who's coming in and maybe you're establishing a new fringe or putting a new shape of a fringe on them, that are approaching it first off out of the gate, it gives them the rest of that time of the service to kind of adapt to it, ask questions, and allows you to go back and then alter it if they feel like it might be a bit too heavy, or too long, too heavy, whatever it might be.
And sometimes too, you need to see what that fringe is going to do. And if you're cutting it wet, you put your shape in, and then you just want to see how it's gonna like start to live once it starts to dry naturally, and then that can help you guide you and the client into how to approach the fringe when they're at home. Like, what is it going to do when it air dries? Is it going to need some drying? Is it going to need a little bit of help manipulating it? Because some people have really strong cowlicks, and I do like to work with them, but sometimes for what they want, we got to soften up the cowlicks. Okay, so I just let go of a lot of length. And that was super loose. That was very loose compared to what I did internally, but I felt like that's what it needed, because internally it's very loose. So that's that. Let me go back to the front to see what's going on over here. That's a big, big, big difference. So see how I'm pushing her hair forward, and now it's bending for me, but she's got that little fringe on the underneath. So she could wear it like this, where she has a super cute short fringe, or she can push it forward and kind of get that like curtainy fringe that girls are really into. Some girls are not ready for like a full fringe. They want a little softness. A lot of girls want some sort of security around their face. So I feel like that's an option for her, to have these longer little flicks, or she can move them aside and have something a little bit bolder underneath. And I'm just gonna actually strengthen that up. And I love that her hair is almost dry on its own. So drying her is gonna be super easy. In through here, I'm gonna do the same thing I did towards the back. I'm just gonna be doing some carving. Go ahead and tilt down for me. There we go. So opening and closing. And just releasing some weight. I like this too because I get all these little short pieces, but it still leaves length on the layers, so she's not gonna feel like she's got super short layers, but she's gonna have lots of little ones in there. And that's what's gonna give her a lot of lift. Tilt down again.
Can you take a second and talk about the importance of continual and advanced education for yourself as a stylist as well as a teacher?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty nerdy. I guess I've just always been a little bit of a bookworm, and I like to see new things. I like to hear different approaches. I love to hear how different educators explain things, because when you're teaching someone, you can't teach just one way. You can't explain it just one way. You have to explain sometimes like 5, 10 different ways because everybody learns so differently. So I love to hear how people will explain a graduated bob, or how they'll approach a fringe, or how they approach texture. And there's so many different ways of cutting hair. You have your precision, you have your like wet to dry, where it's structural but also loose, and then you have people that are just very loose, and it's more of like literally about a feeling, and it's very organic and less about precision, less about lines, but it's more about literally a feeling. So I think I appreciate that because I like to blend both of those into what I do. I feel like if you just stick with one way, I mean, you can master that way and just teach that way, but it's nice to speak, I guess, different languages when you're teaching a student and be able to explain it in